An Oklahoma County sheriff is shot and killed while serving an eviction notice. All right, guys, hello and welcome to another episode of Thinking Out Loud. Today we've got a really quick episode for you. We're going to be talking about this article right here from the Oklahoman. A sad day, Oklahoma County deputy killed, second wounded while serving eviction notice. Now, I came across this article while sort of scrolling through social media, Twitter, Facebook, all that, kind of, trying to dig into what I wanted to talk about this week. And, I initially found this article in the format of a meme with, people kind of joking around with that old adage, fuck around and find out, right? Which, of course, is very fitting for the sake of censorship, or I guess for the sake of being a civil human being. I'm going to try to avoid joking around about the cop being killed, although I think you know where I stand on that, right? But I'm going to try to focus on how this shooting relates to the housing crisis that we've been going through as a country for several years, something that's gotten worse in the last several months and the last couple of years. And I'm going to try to relate to it also to the eviction crisis that's been going on. I mean, we're seeing hundreds of thousands of people being evicted from their homes right now as a result of the financial failings of the economy, of the financial and economic hardships of the pandemic, right? So going into this article, as we pick it apart, I'm going to try to keep it centered around that. If a little bit of dark humor gets thrown your way along the way, I'm sorry ahead of time. Let's jump into the article here, guys. It says, a sad day, Oklahoma County deputy killed, second wounded while serving eviction notice. Authorities have identified Benjamin Plank, 35 years old, as the suspect who was arrested Monday afternoon after a shooting left one Oklahoma County sheriff's deputy dead and another wounded as they tried to serve an eviction notice in southwest Oklahoma City. Plank was being held Tuesday at the Oklahoma County Jail on complaints of first-degree murder, shooting with intent to kill, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, and use of a vehicle and discharging a weapon, records show. I love how, before we go on the reading here, just a little side note. I love how, and I get it, the guy killed and murdered somebody. There's going to be repercussions, but I love how anytime you do any crime, excuse me, the police, they always layer on like as many fucking charges they possibly can. An example, this is just a random thought I'm having, but an example is like if you get caught with weed in a prohibition state, they give you, depending on if you're selling it or not, but they'll give you a possession charge, conspiracy to distribute charge, paraphernalia charge, absence of a tax stamp charge. I mean, just crazy ass shit like that, right? They'll just layer it on. I don't know why the fuck they do that. I'm guessing because of fines or whatever. But I love how the guy murdered a dude, right? I think that's bad enough, and you can make the case, ACAB, right, in this situation. But still, whatever, you killed a dude, you're going to give him a murder charge, probably murder in first or second degree, imagine. We could probably just leave it at that without all the clerk of court type shit, right? Let's do a little more reading here, guys. It says Plank was supposed to have been appearing Tuesday before a judge in Oklahoma County District Court on hearing about a victim protective order that had been filed against him. Plank is accused of having opened fire in Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office officer Sergeant Swartz and a colleague as they attempted to deliver an eviction notice to the property's occupant. Now, when we hear of any kind of police brutality, or in this case, a police officer being shot and killed, they'll always bring the defendant's past into light, right? Like with George Floyd, they tried to paint all this stuff about, I don't even remember now, I guess, that he was a drug addict or that he had drugs or he had a past history, and so therefore he's justified in being killed. And we can pick that apart, and obviously it's like that has nothing to do with somebody being, shot to death by police or abused in their custody. There's no justification. We have habeas corpus, we have due process for a fucking reason, so that police or military police or whoever isn't killing people indiscriminately on the street. And then obviously we have qualified immunity and all these things that make it so that pretty much, while not de jure, police have the capacity to do that. De facto, they do, right? But conversely, when I saw this this article in a meme format, you had people just immediately, reflexively hailing him as a hero. And we need to be careful of doing that as well, because while this guy shot and killed a officer who was serving him an eviction notice, we can applaud that all we want of defending yourself. Forcing somebody out in the street is violence, and so we have a right to respond to violence with violence. But, let's not jump ahead of ourselves and make this guy out to be a hero. It says here that he was supposed to be to a hearing about a victim protective order that had been filed against him. I don't know what that was. Was that sexual assault? Was that this or that? I don't know. But, just saying, with these sort of things as they come out, and as we're going to get into this article later, we're going to see more of this sort of violence as evictions continue, right? But let's be hesitant to put somebody out on a pedestal that this guy may have been an abuser. He may have been somebody that committed sexual assault. He may have been a rapist. We don't know. And furthermore, we don't know if he was shooting at this cop necessarily because of the eviction notice, or because maybe he was on drugs, or he just was going mad. We don't know the character of this dude, right? He could have, in a different circumstance, not done this. Maybe this was just that final snap of the moment, straw that broke the camel's back, and he started shooting, right? In a different circumstance, he may have been an active shooter that goes into a school, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm rambling here with this, but I just want to point out, just because the guy killed a cop who was serving an eviction notice, we should maybe be hesitant to put him on a pedestal. And I tried digging around in this guy's criminal record and seeing what kind of dude he was. Tried finding his Facebook profile. I couldn't find anything. So any of our tech wizards or hacker wizards or, collective intelligence people that are, lingering around in our comment section here, maybe they can do some of that research and let us know more, right? But anyway, let's get into this here more, guys. Says it's a sad day for the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Tommy Johnson III said, "Law enforcement, it's a tight community, and I'm so thankful they were screaming across the state for our guys." And got an image there of the officer crying. Yeah, we know you're all tight. You're pretty much a state-sanctioned gang, right? We know that's the case. The deputies, described as veteran officers who have been with the department more than 20 years, were taken to OU Medical Center, where Swartz was pronounced dead. In a 2018 Facebook video, Swartz said he joined the sheriff's office in December 1997. "Before that, I was in the Army Reserves," he said. He said he joined the sheriff's office because he likes helping people. Now, that's an interesting thing. That's something you hear amongst police all the time. And I think a lot of them go into that genuinely believing that's why they're doing it. I mean, you've got people joining it because they're fucking monsters and they get off on brutalizing people or wearing a badge and having a gun and having authority over people. Obviously, there's no fucking question. You get white supremacists in there. You got all that type of shit, right? But there are some people that join it thinking they're doing the right thing. My local police department has been doing a hiring campaign, likely because of all the new money that Biden's been pushing out to police departments all over the country, right? Thank God we did all that stuff during BLM summer. It's really fucking paid off for us, unfortunately. But I've seen people in my community, including somebody that was actively involved in Black Lives Matter stuff, join the police department here in my community. And it's really fucking wild to me. Classic liberal. How do you go from doing these protests? She was one of the speakers of people kind of rallying people up during the protests we had here in my smaller community. How do you go from that to joining a fucking police department? That's just, case in point how liberals act. They say one thing and then there's this either complete hypocrisy or, rational disconnect about what they're contributing to, right? And it was interesting because she said she wanted to help people. That's why she got it. And the police department here in my town did this whole fucking spiel about, quote unquote, be the change you want to see. And I wish I could make her understand that you're not going to change anything. These systems are hard baked in. If you're trying to change the system from the inside, it's going to end up changing you. And along the way, in your little vendetta or crusade of trying to change things from the inside, you're going to do irreparable harm to people. You're going to end up putting people in jail for drugs. You're going to fuck up lives, or much worse, really. Or you're going to end up serving eviction notices or being, complicit in that sort of program as well. But I'm actually right now going to play this video that they're talking about that came from his Facebook page for you guys, so you can get a feel for this guy and some of the arguments and some of the rationale that police have, right, as to why they do what they do, and talk about that disconnect that I mentioned earlier. So I'm going to roll that for you guys, and then we're going to spend some time picking it apart.
Law enforcement. I've been in law enforcement since 97. December of 97, I joined the sheriff's office. Before that, I was in the Army Reserves. Lockouts always try to show up about 30 minutes prior to the lockout people showing up. That way I can diffuse any problems that we may have.
In 600 feet.
Hello! Hey, how are you doing? Oh, I see you guys here early. They're going to have a lock, locksmith and stuff here at 10 o'clock.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You have until 10. You'll have to make... They were supposed to have been out 6 weeks ago. They gave until the 31st. They gave 2 more weeks to get their stuff out. Where there's not the found out the son is still living here with the mother. They're here to pack their stuff up and get it out now, but we have to have them out of the house by 10. Hello? I'm the type that I like structure. I like giving, helping people. So that's why I joined the sheriff's department, other than I needed a job at the time. But I worked in the jail for 6.5 years, made my way up through the ranks. And then I went to the courthouse, went to juvenile, I went to patrol. I've worked throughout the sheriff's office, but I've been there now almost 21 years. I've enjoyed every bit of it. I always say it takes a certain breed, it takes a certain character to do that. You have to have a strong will and a strong exterior to do what we do. They probably reneged on their rent, hadn't been able to pay it or something. Now they might be 2 months behind on their rent. In the event, I had a court order to lock it up and turn it back over to the landlord. What happens after this is between him and the landlord.
He was served yesterday, not on scene at this time.
It changes it. You look at the world a wholly different way. Because you've seen the worst in people. But the rewarding part is you can see how good and how blessed people are.
All right, guys. So that's the little video there that the article is talking about that came from Swartz' Facebook page, or from the police department's or sheriff department Facebook page, right? A few things here I want to talk about that kind of show the duality of rationale of people that, serve in law enforcement, and perhaps even you could spill over or relate to also like in military service and things like that. This officer, Sergeant Swartz, whatever, he talks several different times throughout that video. And I understand it's an interview and it's probably like a little PR thing. But he talks several times throughout that about how he got into this because he wanted to help people. And I like that little perhaps Freudian slip there, because I also needed a job. We can elaborate on that maybe with a little psychiatric help from some of our professionals or experts that might be in the comment section about how that might be a little Freudian slip. But anyway, you know, he talks about helping people, about wanting to make a difference, about wanting to be a giving person, right? And I don't know the dude. I don't know. He seems genuine enough about it, right? But that's the fucking disconnect. I mean, this guy could be a savage monster that beats his wife. We know a large number of people in law enforcement beat their wife or are very domineering, right? We don't know who he actually is. We just had this little interview. But again, he seems genuine. He talks about wanting to help people. I just wonder or ruminate sometimes on where that disconnect comes from, right? Of you say you get into this because you want to help people. You want to make a difference. You want to protect people. I know a lot of people get into law enforcement because they think they're going to fucking solve crimes or help with domestic disputes or keep the peace. How do you go in, like he said, his first job was working at the prison or the jail or whatever as a guard. And he worked his way up there. What rationale are you creating for yourself that that's helping anybody, keeping people in cages, a lot of them, the majority of them, for nonviolent crimes? First off. Okay. And he says he works his way up and did this and that and walked the beat. And now he serves eviction notices for people. One of the people there that it highlighted was an 82-year-old woman in her house. And he's evicting her. Where do you fail the line of thought to realize that that's not fucking helping anybody? You're not helping anybody at all. You're turning somebody out on the street for what? That old lady's presumably retired. Maybe there's an issue with her Social Security, or the Social Security is not enough. She has her son living there who presumably helps with the bills, I'm hoping. Where is this disconnect coming from that you think you're helping people? You're doing the exact opposite. And this comes back to that argument of like why we say ACAB, all cops are bastards. Right? It's not saying that each individual human being as a separate human being, separate from the system, from the institution of policing, might not be a decent human being. That guy seemed on face value, like I said, genuine enough, a nice enough person. I genuinely believe he thinks he's a giving person and an outstanding member of his community. Maybe he has a good home life. Maybe he does give back to his community in other ways, right? He as an individual human being may not be a bad person, but the second he puts that uniform on, second he puts that badge on, second he puts the gun on and goes around kicking people out of their homes, something that should be a human right, a house, a home should be a human right, you've become a bastard. You've become a bastard of the system that you live in. The system of capitalism, the system of inequality, the system of unjust property relations where that landlord has a precedent because it's his property over you who needs a fucking house as a human being to survive and thrive. Or going on further when it comes to the war on drugs. You might be a decent human being. You might think the war on drugs is wrong. But the second you arrest somebody and find somebody and funnel them into a jail cell because they were smoking weed or because they were smoking a little bit of meth or even using heroin, you have perpetuated a system of injustice. You have become a bastard the second you put that uniform on. Because the second you put that uniform on, you are no longer just a civilian. You are no longer just a human being. You are an agent of the state. You are an agent of the state that enforces unjust property relations. And I don't think people understand that. This isn't helping anybody. And I wonder what does he think? How can you genuinely think you're helping somebody by kicking them out on the street because you couldn't pay rent? And we'll read in the article that this is normal. This is what they do constantly. This is one of the primary jobs of police. This is the only job of police, of sheriffs, is to enforce property relations, is to protect the property of the ruling class. That's it. It's not to protect you. It's not to solve rapes. It's not to solve murders. They do a little bit of that for PR to make you feel safe, make them feel like they're on your side. But that's not their main job. They have two main jobs: protect property relations, protect property rights. Above all human rights, property rights is number one in the United States. And two, to funnel people into the prison industrial complex to make profit, and to find people to generate revenue for the state, for the county, for the city. That's their job. That's the primary job. All the crime solving and the fucking SVU, law and order shit that you see, that's all just fucking PR. That's such a small portion of what they actually do. If that's all they did was solve violent crimes and like bust rapists and serial killers and shit, nobody would have a problem, man. Nobody would be saying ACAB or fuck 12 if that's all they did. Or if that was the majority of what they did and they did a little bit of the fucked up shit on the side, very small amount. You'd have a lot less of that sentiment that's been building and building and building for years coming to a head recently. This is why people say ACAB, is because they associate police first and foremost with, that's who's going to kick me out of my house if I lose my job and can't pay rent while I'm trying to find another job. That's who caught me smoking a joint and put me in jail. Like, I don't understand how people don't get it, you know? And I don't understand how people putting on the uniform like Swartz here, who is now fucking dead in serving this eviction, doesn't get that he's not fucking helping people by doing this. It's insane to me. Let's go ahead and do some more reading here, guys. We'll try to round this off real fast. Said the wounded deputy was not immediately identified and was described as being in stable condition according to the sheriff's office. The incident began just after 1 p.m. when deputies attempted to serve an eviction notice in the 2200 block of Southwest 78, officials said. We had two deputies who were serving lockout papers, contacted the individual at the front door. They then went around to the back door, and that's when the shooting began, Johnson said. Shot the first deputy. The second deputy tried to get that deputy out of the way of gunfire, and then he was struck as well. At least one deputy on the scene was able to return fire during the incident, said Captain Valerie Littlejohn, Public Information Officer for the Oklahoma City Police Department. Aaron Brilbeck, Public Information Officer for the Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office, said serving papers and doing lockouts is what these guys do. This was about as routine as it gets, he said. These deputies are very well trained. This is the thing that they do for 8 to 10 to 12 hours per day every single day. Generally, it's a question of serving paperwork on a door, coming back a few days later, and 9 times out of 10, the person has already vacated the premises. That wasn't the case this time around. Okay, so this is the main thing I want to talk about here. We've already kind of alluded to it and talked about it, but serving papers and doing lockouts is what these guys do. These deputies are very well trained. This is the thing they do for 8 to 10 to 12 hours per day every single day. Okay, if that's what you're doing 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, when's the crime stopping come in? Okay, that's 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day of wages paid by taxpayers to kick people out of their house. Okay, how is that good for anybody? If somebody wants to explain to me in the comments how that's fucking good for anybody, or that's serving and protecting, somebody fucking tell me. Serving and protecting the capitalist class, the landlord class, maybe. But that's the point I want to make out to you guys, is they're professionals. They do this all day, every fucking day. And you got sheriff's departments and sheriffs and law enforcement all over the fucking country doing it day in, day out, 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, as they said. That's their primary fucking purpose, is kicking people out of the house. Moving homeless people around. Fucking people up when they try to come out in the street and resist. That's the job. Let's kill the reading here, guys. After the shooting, the suspect fled in a truck towing a boat and was spotted by Oklahoma City police and other agencies, which began a pursuit, officials said. The suspect led the police to the city, driving on several highways, including Interstate 240, I-35, and I-40. During that pursuit, the suspect was firing rounds at the officers, and we had officers as well returning fire at the suspect, Littlejohn said. The pursuit ended at the Tinker Gate of Tinker Air Force Base after the driver exited I-40. He was taken into custody with the assistance of multiple agencies, police said. The suspect was first taken to an area hospital to be medically cleared. The last line of duty shooting death in Oklahoma County Sheriff's Office occurred in 1935 when the agency was still called the Oklahoma County Constable's Office, according to the Officer Down memorial page. What's interesting is I did a little researching that the last time an officer was killed on duty there was in 1935, like they said, and it was a bunch of bank robbers that had somehow escaped the local penitentiary or jailhouse and were holding up in some farmhouse somewhere being covered apparently by a friend or somebody who knew him was given some cover on the outside. Sheriff showed up, shootout started, chase started, and one or two officers was killed, right? And I just want to use this as an example as we hear all the time how dangerous the job of policing is. And oftentimes that fact, as they put it, is used as an excuse for the fucking trigger happy policing that we see. It's dangerous. It's scared. These officers are high tension and mistakes happen, as if just perpetually killing hundreds of people every year is a mistake that we should be writing off, right? But I wanted to point this statistic out. So in Oklahoma City, a pretty big city, the last sheriff killed was almost 100 years ago. Okay. And we can do some deep dive on some more statistics, and I'm sure it's going to reflect a similar thing of how few officers are actually hurt or killed in relation to the amount of people that they hurt, brutalize, and kill. It's a fucking fallacy. It's a fucking fake excuse to justify the fucking trigger-happy policing and violence, to normalize it, to justify it, to manufacture our consent for it, and it's utter bullshit. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much all the reading I have here for you guys. I just wanted to share this with you because it's an interesting story. It outlines this psychological disconnect that people in law enforcement seem to have, where they think and truly believe, a lot of them, that they're helping people. And then meanwhile, their day-to-day job is kicking people out of the house or arresting them for nonviolent crimes, fucking their life up, and fucking their family's lives up. I mean, this is something personal to me because my whole fucking life has been a testament or a story of the war on drugs, because my dad was a drug addict and the people in my life were drug addicts, and they were constantly in and out of jail, and they were relegated to the second caste felony system where they could never get good work and so were perpetually in poverty. You know, these are the things that policing does. This is the result of the systemically broken fucking policing system we have, right? And I just thought this was an article that's a great example of this. And the last point I want to leave you with is, as this eviction crisis continues, as we continue to see corporate landlords more and more compiling and compounding and cementing their properties, their hold on housing in this country, and as economic straits get worse and worse and worse for people, we're going to see more of this. We're going to see more of people, at least in this vein, spontaneously fighting back or resisting or snapping and killing police officers. So if you don't want to see police officers being killed, let's fucking end this. Okay? Because it's only going to continue and it's only going to get worse. And one final note on top of that is, look, I don't know the history of this guy like we talked about in the beginning. The guy could be a completely savage, criminally insane psychopath. I don't know. But people that are condemning him because he shot and killed an officer who's trying to kick him out of his home, saying, you know, that's fucking violence. Violence is never the answer. This is something we talked about before on this channel. Getting kicked out of your home and forced to be homeless because of our property relations in the society is violence. We talked about this in more depth in a more recent video. But what the police were coming to do to him, kick him out and make him homeless, that's violence. And if he refused to go from his home that he lives, that all his shit's in, you bet they would have fucking beat him or shot him or killed him. So when they show up to your door with that eviction notice and they put it on the fucking door and they tell you, we'll be back in a few days, and if you're not gone, we're going to drag you out. That is a threat of violence. And as a human being, you have every right to respond to violence with violence. And that's what this is. And as I said, we're going to see more of it if this housing crisis isn't solved, if we don't change the way that we run property relations in this society. There is no excuse for a human being to be threatened with violence because they can't pay their fucking rent. Oftentimes, and maybe not the case with this guy, I don't know, but oftentimes due to no fault of their own, because they lost their job or because they went bankrupt. There's no excuse, ever. But yeah, guys, like I said, that's all I have for you. Hopefully this video ended up a little bit short. Just a quick little story I wanted to share with you guys. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this this story about this police officer being shot and killed. Let me know if you think I was right with some of my analysis here. If you have any more information on this story, on perhaps the cops past or the defendant's past, and you want to share that with us, drop it in the comments as well. But yeah, guys, as always, it's great hanging out with you, and I'll speak with you again soon.